Hey, I'm Steve, and welcome to the podcast Stuff with Steve. And today I got Kaleea sitting across the table with me. Good morning, Kaleea.
Good morning, Steve. How are you?
Oh, I've had a great day. It started with McDonald's and a $1 cup of coffee.
Nothing beats $1 coffee.
Yeah, do you know the McDonald's little jingle?
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
See, I knew you had it. That's what you have right there. That's perfect. Okay, so Kaleea, today we're going to talk about a non-controversial issue. We're going to talk about abortion.
Oh, that's so uncontroversial.
Right? So, and why would I do that? Well, first off, there is a court case before the Supreme Court that was argued concerning a law in a state that said that after 15 weeks, no abortions could be performed because the heartbeat of a baby could be heard at 15 weeks. So they said the heartbeat is the determining factor. And so that case is before the Supreme Court. Also, yesterday, I'm in a Bible study that I'm in, and I got asked a bunch of questions about abortion.
Okay.
And I thought, I just need to do a podcast and just talk about this issue a little bit. And then I would like to follow up later on and talk about some of the other issues with this that I can think of that get very complicated. Like if abortions are outlawed, then as Christians, we really need to step up to the plate and start caring for people.
Right, and their children.
And their children, right? So I just think we can have our viewpoints and talk those things, but man, we got to get ready to be able to respond with care and compassion.
Right.
And we already do, but I think we're going to have to ratchet that up because
level up.
There are pregnancy care centers, clinics, and they're going to need even more support and financial help. And I think I'm already going down a rabbit hole, right?
Yeah.
It's already, but I just think young women and men are going to need support, relationship support. You can give resources, and we can do that, but if you don't give that personal friendship support, then I think that's just an integral part of that as well.
Right.
So I want to talk about that and some other issues later on. And I'm no lawyer, I'm no constitutional expert, and so but we'll try to have somebody on that is an expert with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
In the future. Okay. So just kind of a brief overview. Abortion was approved with Roe v. Wade in the early 70s with that court case that deemed basically you can have abortion at any time.
Yeah.
And they tried to do this trimester thing, and that was never quite clear, right? So we had Roe v. Wade, and Doe versus Bolton was another early court case that mattered a lot. And then I think in the year 2000 there was some court case about partial birth abortion, which is, in my view, a horrendous thing to partially have a baby born, all except its head, and then puncture and take out the brain. And so when I describe that to people, or if you see pictures of it, you convulse. It's not good. So in my reading, it seems like most people try to talk about abortion, and the crux of the issue is the unborn a person?
Yeah. Do they have life?
And sometimes they separate life from personhood, which and that's an argument. That's an argument for pro-abortion. So I'm pro-life. But somebody said, well, it might be a living organism with cells, but it's not a person.
Interesting.
So they'll make that distinction. So there are three ways that people like. One is that the unborn is a person from the moment of fertilization, and all the chromosomes come together, and that is a person. Secondly, some would say it's a potential life. That this is a potential human being, but it's not a human being. It's not a person. But it has the potential for it, and hence that's one argument that people use concerning abortion. It's something that's talked about. And then the third view is that the fetus, the baby, I would say, I think when we use terms like fetus, we're trying to dehumanize.
Yeah.
My doctor friends do that, but they went to medical school.
Yeah.
I just say, hey, it's a baby.
Yeah.
And they say that's not a person until they take a breath.
Okay.
Until they're born. And sometimes Christians who are pro-choice would say, well, Adam wasn't a person until God breathed into him. And I'm like, Adam wasn't born. He was created.
Yeah.
We're talking, you're making stuff up to make your own viewpoint. That's just not part of the picture of what's
Apples
going
to
on.
oranges.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so we just have this going on with these kind of arguments. So another argument that's often used is that, well, the baby's only a potential life. It's like an acorn is a potential oak tree.
Okay.
You're laughing, but I'm being serious.
Yeah.
And the problem with that view is the acorn has every genetic thing it needs to be a tree.
Yeah.
It is a tree. It's a tree in a shell.
Yeah.
It's a tree in a shell. So I was asked on my morning Bible study, hey, what are the Bible verses about supporting human life?
Yeah.
And being pro-life. And so I just want to read a couple of these, and then we'll talk about some other biblical points. And all of the, what I'm going to call logical arguments, I'm going to leave those for another time because they get interspersed quickly with philosophy and legal things. So in Exodus it says, if people are fighting and hit a pregnant woman and she gives birth prematurely, but there is no serious injury, the offender must be fined whatever the woman's husband demands and the court allows. But if there is serious injury, you're to take life for life, eye for eye. So let me give the context of this. If this is Exodus 21, and it is a section on civil and criminal law. So the Israelite people left Egypt. They had been slaves for 430 years. They didn't have any laws. They didn't know how to function as a government or society, so God had to give them the law. It was to be a help for them. And so they didn't know what to do if, like, Kaleea, if you backed into me in the parking lot, how much do you owe me for hitting my car?
Right.
You owe me at least a McDonald's coffee. And
That's fair.
So they had all these rules about, hey, if my ox gores to death, your sheep, what kind of restitution do you get?
Right.
So it's in the context of that along with criminal law. And so the passage here says if people are fighting, like I'm fighting somebody and there's a pregnant woman off the side and she gets injured and she gives birth prematurely, then there's no serious injury, meaning death, the offender must be fined.
Yeah.
So if I cause somebody to have a NICU baby, I got to pay the bill.
Right.
That's basically what this is saying. The problem is that with this verses, this word gives birth prematurely is a confusing. Some people have twisted the Hebrew word to say miscarriage.
Okay.
That if the woman miscarriages, if the woman miscarriages, you just pay a fine. And it makes it sound like the baby's not a person because you're just paying a fine. Right. Does that make sense? But the word clearly means gives live birth prematurely. And then if you read the passage right here in front of me, no serious injury, and the King James translate it mischief. That's kind of a weird translation, but and so some would say, well, the baby was never a person. It was just a fine. Yeah. But it's clear. It's very clear. Gives birth prematurely, a live birth. But if the live birth ends up with serious injury, death, you're to take life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. So it sounds like that if you cause a death, there's going to be some significant consequences for that. It's just not paying a fine. Yeah. So Hebrew culture and the Old Testament law would have manslaughter rules and so forth, much like we do today. So there's going to be some action for that. Yeah. So that verse, I think, is important in this discussion because clearly the baby in the womb is considered as a person. Yeah, is a person. Because otherwise there would not be this life for life, right? Eye for eye. Yeah. So the baby's a person. Psalms says, "For you created me," Psalm 139, created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. And then it goes on to say, your eye saw my unformed body. Yeah. So this to me clearly is stating that the baby in the womb is a person. Is a person. Now, those who take Scripture somewhat seriously, put that way, who are pro-choice, would say, well, the baby is not a person because it's still being knitted together. And I'm reading some of these arguments for this, and I'm like, you're just making stuff up as you go.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because you have a viewpoint.
You have an argument for everything.
Yeah, it's not fitting.
You're trying to solidify.
That.
Yeah.
And so those are two, I would say, central passages about the value of human life.
Yeah.
So before our podcast started, Pastor John Green was in here with me, and he said, and he's 100% correct, Christians since day one were pro-life, very pro-life. And in the 2nd century, a church father named Tertullian wrote extensively about the evil of abortion as early as the 2nd century. Early Christians would take people who would leave their babies on doorsteps or something, would care for those babies and love on those babies as well. So from an early perspective, Christians have been pro-life from day one. Okay, so throughout Scripture, unborn babies are called children in the Old Testament. I got a myriad of verses right here in front of me: Luke 1, Exodus 21, Luke 2, the whole birth scene of Jesus, 1 Kings 17, and so forth. And then we have that the unborn are formed by God Himself and are created in God's image as well. Another biblical argument is that the life of the unborn is protected by the same punishment for injury, and we just read that in Exodus 21. And then also we have that God created them male and female. In His image, people are created, and it is determined at the moment of conception whether you're male and female biologically. Then. And so, and we can talk about this later, but my understanding would be when a baby is conceived, every part of DNA is right there for a personhood, right? As well. Nothing is added after that. In fact, I said one time to somebody, if a person does not exist at the moment of conception, then when does fatherhood start?
Good question.
Okay. Right. It starts later on or something, according to that view as well. Unborn children possess personal characteristics such as joy. I have passages with this. Psalm 51 talks about this. And then we have personal pronouns all through the Bible to describe babies in the womb. He, she, personal pronouns. And what does that mean? Personhood. The baby is a person as well. Here's one. The unborn are known intimately by God.
Known. You can't know something that isn't a person.
Bingo. Spot on. So we have that Psalm 139, Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 5 as well. So we have these biblical passages that all point to the personhood of the unborn from the moment of conception. We're not Catholic, but I give the Catholic Church great credit for standing firm on these issues of life and pro-life as well. So soon we'll have this court case coming from the Supreme Court, and controversy is going to break out. Right? And because they may overturn Roe versus Wade in its totality, which I would be in favor of, or they may say, well, we're sticking with the law of that state, Mississippi, which says that at 15 weeks, since we can detect a heartbeat, no abortions past that. So in that state, they're trying to chip away at this Roe versus Wade argument as well. So Kaleea, you're a little bit younger than I am? Or a lot younger than I am? So what do people your age, in their 20s, how do they view abortion?
Oh, it's going to make me emotional. I think people in my generation just view abortion as a convenience. If you make a mistake, then you can get rid of the mistake by getting an abortion. And a lot of people in my generation bring up rape, but don't know that rape is actually less than 1% of the reason that people get abortions. More times than not, people get an abortion because it's just inconvenient to have a baby at their life stage. Another thing I've been seeing floating around specifically on social media is that, and this offends me if you know anything about the origins of Planned Parenthood, the person who started Planned Parenthood was actually a eugenicist, which is somebody who believes that certain races are less intelligent, and because of that, it's okay to murder certain races, in this case, specifically black people.
Yes.
So Planned Parenthoods were specifically put in black communities for the purpose of that, of carrying out eugenicism. So that's deeply offensive to me. And something that I've been seeing floating around is that getting rid of abortion is actually taking away from marginalized communities because we don't have the same economic status. And so basically continuing to encourage this theme of black people shouldn't be having babies because they can't take care of themselves. So there's a lot of racist underpinning to abortion too. So with my generation being so adamant about social justice, I wish they could see the injustice connected to abortion in the way that it's been rooted in certain communities. So yeah, that's how people view it, and it's frustrating.
Yeah. So I was going to do an entire podcast in the future on Margaret Sanger.
Yeah.
And you brought it up.
Yeah.
So we'll do that, and we'll let you take the lead on that.
Okay.
So you have to read another biography on
Margaret
Sanger,
about her.
But she was definitely evil.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole Planned Parenthood thing, I'm going to get mad. It's eugenics and killing black children, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's awful.
It's terrible.
Yes, and everybody ignores that.
Everybody
does.
Yeah, it's very frustrating.
No, I see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know as we talk about abortion here, there's so many, like I said earlier, rabbit trails.
There are.
And they're important ones.
Yeah.
Right? There is just not theory here. And I think the reason Christians got so on board with this being pro-life is because we are talking life and death.
Yeah. We are.
We're talking about persons dying.
Yeah.
I don't know how many, 60 million maybe since Roe versus, it's millions.
Yeah.
Of children have been aborted.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to end with 1 minute by saying this to everybody who's watching, everybody who's listening, is simply this. I have great compassion for those who have had an abortion.
Yeah.
And forgiveness is offered through our Savior, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And grace and mercy and compassion are available to everyone, regardless of that. As a pastor for 30 years, I've had some of those discussions. Many would be too strong of a word, but I've had those discussions with people who ache and hurt because of their decisions in the past. And every time I talk about this, I always want to finish with mercy and grace is available to everyone, no matter what decisions you made in the past.
Yeah.
Your baggage can be unpacked as well.
That's good.
Okay. Hey, Kaleea, thank you for talking about this.
Thank you.
And we'll talk about it probably again next year, which isn't very far off, as this court case becomes more prevalent and in the news as they release a verdict sometime next year. Okay. Hey, I'm Steve, sitting here with Kaleea, with Roger and Taylor helping out in the tech stuff. And we're glad that you could listen to Stuff with Steve. Grace and peace be with you.